The first thing I saw when I stepped into the airport lounge was my own face, on the front page of the newspaper.at first. I thought it was some startup feature, maybe another women in tech spotlight. I'd had a few in the past, but then I saw the headline and my knees almost gave out. Tragic loss of tech visionary Alina Voss. Family mourns quiet genius after sudden accident abroad. My breath caught in my throat. No. I scanned the article with shaking hands. They said I died while hiking, that my body was irretrievable, that I left behind a grieving family and a heartbroken sister. There were photos of Simone holding a framed portrait of me, weeping in a black veil. They even quoted my mother. She was always a quiet girl, brilliant, but so fragile. We prayed she'd find peace. Now she has. Fragile? I hadn't died. I'd gone off-grid for a 10-day silent retreat in the Himalayas. No phones, no internet, no contact. On purpose. For peace. But in that silence, they buried me, my family, my sister, the people I built everything to protect. They declared me legally dead, held a funeral, transferred my estate. Simone moved into my penthouse, sold my company. They took everything, and they thought I'd stay gone. But I wasn't dead, and I didn't come back to cry. I came back to collect. As I folded the newspaper and placed it calmly on the counter, I felt a strange sensation. Not rage, not grief, satisfaction. Because what Simone didn't know was this: before I left, I put a quiet system in place, one she never saw, one she couldn't escape. She thought she buried me, but I was already digging her grave. My name is Alina Voss, and for most of my life, I believed in quiet strength. I wasn't the type to speak first in a room. I didn't chase the spotlight or build my worth around applause. While others sought attention, I craved clarity, data, logic, patterns. I found comfort in the silence of code, in systems that made sense when people didn't. I grew up in a house where love was measured in attention, and attention was given to the loudest voice. That voice belonged to my older sister Simone. She was magnetic, always had been. Blonde, witty, perfect posture, perfect smile. She could charm a room before she even entered it. My parents adored her. Teachers praised her. Strangers remembered her. And me? I was the quiet one, the little genius, the girl in the background who built robots while her sister danced in recitals. But I didn't mind. Not really. Because I had a different kind of dream. At 16, I taught myself how to breach basic firewalls. By 17, I'd built a malware detection tool that caught the attention of a private security firm. While Simone was uploading brunch selfies, I was learning Python, then C++, then Rust. By 24, I had launched VossNet, a cybersecurity startup designed to help small businesses defend themselves against ransomware attacks. My first investor laughed when I walked into the room, said I didn't look like a CEO. 3 years later, he begged me for a buyback. I turned it down, not because of ego, but because I was building something real, something clean. I believed in protecting people's digital lives the way doctors protect their physical ones. Quietly, carefully, without needing credit. My company grew fast, but I didn't. I still drove my 10-year-old Honda. I still ate dinner standing in the kitchen. I still answered my own emails, still fixed my own servers, still believed that integrity mattered more than headlines. And through all of it, through the IPO, the Forbes feature, the awards, I kept my family close, maybe too close. I paid off my parents' mortgage. I gave Simone a business loan she never repaid. I invited her to all my launch parties, gave her front row seats, let her take pictures with my investors, let her call me mouse even when it made me feel 12 again, because I wanted her to be proud of me. I wanted them all to be proud of me, even when they didn't understand what I did, even when they forgot my birthday, even when they said I got lucky with the tech boom. I still showed up, because that's what family does, or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, I see it clearly. I was the workhorse, the backup plan, the golden goose they thought they could keep in a quiet corner, feeding them quietly forever. But geese don't stay quiet forever, especially not when you steal everything they've ever built and bury them alive. I had spent my entire life creating invisible shields to protect strangers from digital harm. What I hadn't realized was that the real virus was sitting across the dinner table. If you ever met Simone Voss, you'd remember her. Everyone did. She had the kind of beauty that made waiters lean in and strangers offer upgrades. Her laugh could slice through any room, flirty, confident, curated. She spoke in Instagram captions, and lived like she was always on camera. Life, to Simone, was a stage, and she made sure she was always at the center of it. She was my older sister by for years, but from the day I was born, she made sure I knew who the star was, and in our house, she didn't have to work too hard. My parents adored her. Teachers bent rules for her. She won homecoming queen, got modeling offers, and dated boys who drove cars their fathers paid for. And when she dropped out of college to pursue her brand, no one questioned her. They just clapped. Simone started a jewelry line. It flopped in 6 months. She tried a wellness blog, plagiarized half of it, then a vegan cosmetics line. Got sued for using synthetic chemicals. Each time, she had the same answer. People just don't get it. I'm ahead of my time. Each time, my parents bailed her out, quietly taking small loans from my growing business account without ever asking. I let it go. I thought, that's what family does. We help. But what I didn't realize, what I couldn't afford to realize, is that Simone didn't just want help. She wanted credit. She couldn't stand that the shy little sister, the one she once dressed up like a doll and called Mouse, was now being asked to speak at global tech conferences. That I was being interviewed on television while she was pushing promo codes on Instagram stories that barely got 1,000 views. Simone was the kind of person who could lose everything and still walk into a room like she owned it. And when she realized that I did own it, my company, my penthouse, my future, she didn't try to compete. She decided to take it. She started slowly, like a parasite in perfect camouflage. First, she'd show up unannounced at my office just to say hi. She'd bring coffee, linger around meetings, charm junior engineers into telling her things they shouldn't. She'd joke with my assistants, laugh with my board members, take selfies in the hallway. I thought she was just trying to connect with me, be part of my world. Then she started offering feedback on company branding, sent me redesign ideas, asked if I ever thought about merging tech with lifestyle. I smiled politely and said I'd think about it. Next, she brought up our family trust over dinner, asked who would take over Vosnet if I ever got too overwhelmed, joked that she'd make a great interim CEO if anything ever happened. She laughed. I laughed. It felt harmless, but Simone never made jokes without purpose. She watched me build everything with quiet envy, and I think a part of her truly believed she deserved it more. She saw my company as her backup plan, her right. And when I told her about my silent retreat in Nepal, that I'd be completely offline, unreachable for 10 days, her eyes lit up. Just for a second, she offered to drive me to the airport, said she'd water my plants, house sit, keep an eye on things. It sounded generous, but it wasn't generosity. It was strategy, because while I was seeking peace at the top of a mountain, Simone was at the bottom, rewriting the script of my life. From the outside, people thought Simone and I were close. We looked close in photos, arms wrapped around each other, matching smiles, vacation backdrops with coordinated outfits. And I'll admit, sometimes it felt real. Sometimes I wanted it to be real. But closeness built on nostalgia isn't the same as love. And in our case, it was a one-way street I kept paving with hope, even when the signs pointed straight to betrayal. Growing up, Simone was the golden child, not just in the eyes of others but in the bones of our home. My parents beamed when she walked into a room. My mother ironed her dresses and curled her hair for school dances. My father took her to dinners with important people while I stayed home with textbooks. Simone's just more social. My mom used to say with a shrug, "You prefer your computer, don't you, Mouse?" They didn't mean to hurt me, at least. That's what I told myself. I learned to be okay with being the shadow behind the spotlight. I told myself that Simone and I were just different, but different didn't mean unequal. And the truth was, I always wanted a real sister. So I kept letting her in. When I got my first tech internship, I called her first. When I launched my company, I invited her to the press event. When I bought my first apartment, I gave her a key. She'd always show up, always hug me tightly and whisper, "Proud of you, Mouse." Always take a selfie, tag me, write a caption. Like, so inspired by this boss babe sister goals. But underneath that filtered affection was something colder, something I refused to name. She never asked how I was sleeping, never offered to help with my stress, but she'd ask about my company's valuation, about which lawyer I used, about what would happen to my business if I took a long break or got seriously ill. She masked these questions as curiosity. "I'm just trying to understand how your world works," she'd say, and I believed her. I wanted so badly to believe her. So when I invited her to stay in my apartment while I left for the retreat, it didn't feel strange. She'd done it before. She said she'd feed my plants, collect the mail, maybe even do a little content work for her brand using my skyline view. We had dinner the night before I flew out. I made her homemade lasagna her favorite. She complimented the wine. She laughed at my stupid joke about monks and rooters. Then she asked casually, "So, if you don't come back, who gets all this?" She was smiling. I laughed. "I don't know, probably you," I joked. She smiled back, raising her glass. "Then I'll take good care of it." It felt like a sisterly tease at the time, but looking back now, that wasn't a joke, that was a plan. The next morning, she hugged me goodbye like she meant it, told me to breathe deep, find peace, reset my soul. I walked away feeling grateful, thinking maybe, finally, our relationship had grown into something beautiful. I had no idea I was hugging the woman who had already written my death certificate, while I sat in silence, away from the noise, trying to heal. She was logging into my bank accounts, meeting with my legal advisor, using my passwords ones she watched me type years ago when we worked side by side at my kitchen table. She knew just enough to convince the right people I was gone, and I had given her everything she needed, not out of weakness, but out of love. That was the most painful part. Looking back, the signs were everywhere, loud as sirens, bright as red flags in a windstorm. But when betrayal wears your sister's perfume, it's easy to mistake warning bells for family quirks. It started small. 3 months before the retreat, I noticed a strange email. It was a request from my accountant asking me to confirm an update to my estate plan. The email was forwarded from my mother's account, supposedly just checking if I still intended to make Simone my primary beneficiary. I blinked at the screen for a full minute. I had never said that. Not once. My estate had always been divided cleanly, 50 to charity, 50% into a fund for future female entrepreneurs. Simone wasn't even listed as a trustee. When I called my mother, she chuckled like it was nothing. "Oh honey, I just thought, in case something happened to you, wouldn't it make sense to keep it in the family?" I brushed it off. Parents worry. She probably meant well, but something about her voice didn't sit right, like she was reading lines from a play someone else had written. Then came the questions. Simone had always been curious, but lately her curiosity felt sharper. One night over dinner, she asked, "Do you ever feel overwhelmed? Like you're drowning in all of it?" I blinked, mid-bite. "What do you mean?" She twirled her wine glass. "I don't know. You work so much. You never sleep. I just worry. You don't talk to anyone anymore. What if you just vanished?" I laughed awkwardly. "Simone, I'm not going to vanish." She smiled back, "Just saying, you should have a contingency plan. You never know." It was framed like concern, but it felt like inventory taking. Then came the forged signature. My lawyer called me one morning, confused. He'd received a document, power of attorney, signed in my name. The signature looked perfect. My handwriting, my initials, but I had never seen it before. "It must be a mix-up," I told him. "I'll look into it," but I didn't. I was too busy prepping for my next investor round, too buried in debugging Vosnet's new infrastructure system, too trusting of the people I thought would never hurt me. Another time, I received a fraud alert from my private bank, unusual access from a new device in Los Angeles. The notification read. I dismissed it. Simone had used my home Wi-Fi before. Maybe her new phone pinged as unknown. No big deal. Besides, she was my sister. She wouldn't, would she? The final straw should have been the birthday dinner. I had just turned 34. I didn't want a party, just a quiet dinner with family. Simone insisted on making the reservation herself. "Don't worry about a thing, Mouse. I've got it." She picked the restaurant, chose the wine, invited mutual friends. But when the check came, she didn't even reach for it. I paid, of course. I always did. But what stunned me was what she said as we walked out. "You know," she whispered, slipping her arm through mine, "if you ever feel like disappearing, I'll take care of everything." I really would. I laughed it off. She smiled. She meant it. Then, 2 weeks later, I told them I was going on a silent retreat. No phones, no internet, no contact for 10 full days. The Himalayas. Complete solitude. My mother looked concerned. "Is that healthy? Cutting everyone off like that?" "You've always had those quiet spells, like I was unstable." I shook it off. Simone, on the other hand, was thrilled. "I'll house sit." She offered immediately. Feed your plants. Make sure no one steals your $1 million view. She said it with a grin, but something in her tone made the room colder. Still, I agreed. I handed her the keys. Told my assistant Naomi to contact me only in an emergency though, of course. She wouldn't be able to reach me anyway. My last night in law, Simone came over with takeout. We sat on the couch, watching a crime docuseries. She kept asking odd questions. How do death certificates even work? Could someone fake one? Wouldn't it be easier to just vanish and start over? I laughed. Simone, what is this? Research for a book. She shrugged. Just curious. As I boarded my flight the next morning, I felt a pit in my stomach. Not dread, not fear. Just static. Like the beginning of a storm too far away to hear, but close enough to feel. She waved at me from the gate, fingers wiggling like a child's. Don't die on the mountain. She joked. And I smiled, not knowing that, by the time I came back, she would have already buried me. The 10th day of silence ended with a bell. I was sitting in the courtyard of the retreat center, barefoot and cross-legged, a thin shawl wrapped around my shoulders. The Himalayan wind brushed against my skin like a whisper, and for the first time in years, my mind was quiet, still, balanced. I didn't know it yet, but my life, my identity, my legacy had already been cremated. When I powered on my phone at the Kathmandu airport, there were no messages from my family. No welcome back from Simone. No check-in from mom. Just hundreds of unread emails, system alerts, and one shocking headline from a tech publication I didn't remember subscribing to. Vosnet acquired after founder's tragic death. Simone, Voss named interim CEO. I stared at the screen like it had glitched. Tragic death. Interim CEO? My fingers trembled as I opened my inbox. There it was, thread after thread of emails from my assistant, Naomi, from my lawyer, from investors. Naomi, day 4 of retreat. Elena, urgent. Simone called an emergency board meeting. Says you've disappeared. She brought paperwork. Says she has control. My lawyer, day 6. I received confirmation of death from your mother and sister. Simone presented a certificate. I don't know what's going on. Please respond. Investor alert, day 7. Company sale finalized. Payout sent to trustee Simone Voss. Condolences on Alina's passing. My head spun. I searched my name online, and there it was. An obituary. A fake one. My full name. Photo. Birthday. A fabricated story about a hiking accident, about my body being lost to the mountains. They even included quotes from my mother and Simone, mourning me. They held a funeral. A funeral. I found photos. Simone standing beside a giant frame picture of me, wearing black, eyes red from what I now know were crocodile tears. My mother beside her, frail and leaning on her shoulder. Friends had commented, so tragic, she was a genius, gone too soon. I was reading condolences for my own death, and all I could think was she actually did it. Simone had declared me dead. She'd forged documents, probably using those signatures she'd seen me sign over the years, copying my curves, mimicking my slant. With my mother's help, she convinced my legal team, the board of directors, and the bank that I had perished in the mountains. She presented evidence, probably fabricated medical files, a witness statement, who knows what else. No one questioned her. Why would they? She was the grieving sister, the next of kin, the beautiful face of the family, stepping up in a time of tragedy. And while the world wept for me, she cashed me out. She transferred Vosnet's IP to a holding company she created behind my back, liquidated my shares, sold the company to a rival firm for half its value and pocketed the check, moved into my penthouse, posted a photo on Instagram of herself in my silk robe, captioned, "Grief changes you, but I'll keep her legacy alive." Hashtag for Lena Vosnet forever. It had over 80,000 likes. I don't know what hit me harder, the betrayal or the precision. She didn't just steal my name, she stole my story, and no one questioned it. Not the board, not the media, not the people I thought would fight for me. Even Naomi, loyal as she was, had been silenced when she started raising red flags. She told me later that Simone blocked her emails from my domains and claimed Naomi was exploiting my death for drama. As soon as I landed in Istanbul for my layover, I booked the first flight home to Laos. I barely slept on the plane. I rehearsed what I'd say, who I'd confront. Rage burned through my veins like acid, but when I arrived at my building and tried to scan my key card, it blinked red. Invalid. I went to the front desk. The doorman, Steve, a man I'd tipped every Christmas for 5 years looked startled when he saw me. Elena, he whispered, eyes wide like he'd seen a ghost. Oh my God. They said you. I stepped past him, calm but cold. I need access to my unit. He fumbled with the system. I am sorry. Your name's not on file anymore. It was reassigned to Simone Voss last week. She's listed as the owner now. She changed the deed. She changed everything. I took the back elevator, walked to my floor, knocked on my own door. Simone answered. She was barefoot, holding a wine glass. My wine glass. Wearing a robe I bought on my last trip to Tokyo. Hair in rollers, face mask on. She looked at me like she was watching a hallucination. Elena? I didn't say a word. Not yet. She stepped back instinctively, like she knew the game was over. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I looked around my apartment, the furniture rearranged, my art taken down, my whiteboards gone. It smelled like her now, like lavender and self-interest. I let the silence stretch between us. Then I smiled, because I knew something she didn't. While she was busy declaring me dead, she never once stopped to ask, what if I planned for someone like her? Headlines changed overnight. The same media that once mourned me now followed Simone's downfall like vultures circling a fallen queen. Simone Voss, sister, CEO, fraud, fake funeral, real fraud. How a tech heiress got caught in her own lie. Elena Voss returns from the dead and reclaims her empire. Her sponsors dropped her within 48 hours. The luxury skincare brand she collaborated with issued a public apology and scrubbed her from their website. The TEDx video was pulled. Her Instagram went dark, and the apartment she once flaunted in mirror selfies repossessed. I never even had to ask. Simone lost everything, but I never pressed charges, not because I didn't want to, but because I understood something she never would. Some things are worse than prison, like silence. Like watching the world that once adored you now avoid your name like a virus. Her reputation, carefully curated through filters and half-truths, was the real currency. And it was gone. I heard she moved back in with our mother. That she tried to pitch a memoir, but no publisher would touch it. Too radioactive, too fresh. I never responded to her emails. Yes, she sent them. A dozen, maybe more. At first, she played innocent. Then she tried flattery. Then blame. Her final message simply said, "You've always been better at this. Are you happy now?" I didn't reply, because I wasn't happy. Not exactly, but I was free, and that was more than enough. 6 months later, I took the stage at a Women in Tech Summit in Berlin, not as a survivor, not as a victim, but as the CEO of a newly reborn Vossnet International. Bigger, cleaner, quieter. They asked me what I'd learned. I stood behind the mic, fingers resting on the podium, voice steady as stone. I used to think betrayal looked like a knife, I said, but it doesn't. It looks like family, like a sister, handing you tea, like a parent, nodding while signing your will behind your back. The room was silent, and I used to think death was the end. I continued, but I died, and came back. I scanned the room, young women, founders, interns, engineers, a few in tears. They held a funeral for me, I said, but I was reborn. The applause came in waves, not loud, not wild, but real. And I knew, in that moment, that I had taken everything Simone tried to erase and turned it into armor. I still don't celebrate birthdays. I don't drink from that wine glass. And I don't visit the grave they made for me. But sometimes, I light a candle at sunset and let the flame remind me, even ashes can burn again. If you've ever been betrayed, if they tried to silence you, bury you, erase your name, but you didn't stay broken. You built again. Then like, comment, and subscribe, because you were never gone. You were just getting started.